Every rocket launched into space burns over 80% of its total fuel reserves in the first 2 minutes of flight just to break free from Earth's gravitational pull. Once it clears the atmosphere, moving through deep space requires almost zero energy. Your financial life operates under the exact same law of physics. Most people spend 40 years burning all their fuel in the lower atmosphere, constantly fighting the gravity of bills, debt, and lifestyle expectations. They never accumulate enough mass to achieve escape velocity. That number isn't $1 million. It's exactly $20,000. The fundamental reason most people stay financially stuck isn't because they don't earn enough money. It's because they don't understand the physics of capital momentum. They treat saving like a temporary punishment rather than a structural engine. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about money. Financial psychology and the hidden mechanical laws that dictate who builds lasting wealth. If you are ready to stop fighting financial friction and actually build an unbreakable foundation, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Today we are going to dissect the physics of the 20,000 escape velocity. Map the mathematical compression of time as your capital scales, and show you how crossing this threshold fundamentally rewires your brain for permanent leverage. Chapter 1: The Friction of the First Footing. Let's talk about why getting started feels like absolute torture. Imagine pushing a 5-ton granite boulder up a muddy, 45-degree incline. Every inch requires maximum physical exertion. You are straining, sweating, burning calories, and looking at the peak thinking it is completely impossible. That is what accumulating your first 20,000 feels like. When you start from zero, compound interest does not exist for you. Every single dollar in that account represents pure, unadulterated labor and sacrifice. If you save $1,000 every single month and earn an 8% annual return, reaching that first 20,000 milestone takes roughly 19 months. That is 1.5 years of consistently turning down impulse purchases. While everyone around you is busy flexing wealth they don't actually own. It is exhausting, and this is precisely where 90% of people quit. They let the boulder roll right back down to the bottom. But here is where the mechanical physics of wealth turns into absolute magic. Once your boulder reaches the top of that hill, the slope reverses. You are no longer fighting gravity, gravity is now working on your behalf. Look at what happens to the math on your second 20,000. Saving another $20,000 at the exact same rate does not take another 19 months. It only takes 17 months. Because your original 20,000 is now standing shoulder to shoulder with you, generating its own return. You shaved 2 full months of human labor off the clock simply because your capital has mass. As you keep going, the time compression accelerates at a rate that feels almost surreal. By the time your portfolio reaches $400,000, that same 20,000 milestone materializes in just 5 months automatically. The very same capital increase that initially demanded 2 years of painful human discipline now happens passively while you sleep, travel, or spend time with your family. The first milestone feels impossible, but every single milestone after it becomes exponentially easier. The most critical transformation, however, is not happening on a spreadsheet. It is happening inside your prefrontal cortex. When you have zero capital, your brain is locked in what neuroscientists define as survival mode. Every single daily transaction is filtered through fear, scarcity, and threat detection. This creates severe decision fatigue. When every dollar is precious, standing in the grocery aisle debating between generic and name-brand pasta burns real cognitive bandwidth. By 6 o'clock in the evening, your brain is utterly exhausted from making 50 micro-survival calculations per day. Your system is constantly flooded with cortisol, which shrinks your long-term cognitive horizon. You physically cannot map out 5-year wealth strategies when your mind is fundamentally terrified. When you lock $20,000 into a liquid account, that chronic cortisol flood evaporates. Having just $2,000 in liquid savings boosts your psychological well-being by 21%. Expanding that buffer to 3 to 6 months of expenses around $20,000 creates pure mental breathing room. You stop sweating the $4 coffee decisions because you know your macro foundation is unbreakable. You free up immense cognitive energy to focus on the big levers: career optimization, major skill acquisition, and high-yield asset allocation. Perhaps the greatest superpower unlocked by escape velocity is what I call the leverage of silence. When you live paycheck to paycheck, you are a captive audience at your job. You cannot push back against toxic management. You cannot refuse unreasonable hours. A liquid $20,000 reserve is pure walking away money. It gives you 3 to 6 months of absolute baseline independence. You don't walk into work boasting about it, but the simple knowledge that it exists fundamentally changes your posture. You negotiate salary from strength. You take calculated risks, volunteer for high-impact projects, or explore strategic career shifts. Because you are no longer terrified of a temporary gap in income. And ironically, when you stop acting desperate, the corporate world rewards you with higher compensation. Furthermore, capital attracts asymmetric opportunities. When you have no liquid cash, a sudden real estate deal is just something you scroll past with envy. When you have 20,000, those exact same events turn into actionable options. Money doesn't magically go to money because of karma. Money goes to money because liquid reserves give you the structural agility to capture value. Achieving escape velocity requires rejecting the traditional middle-class consumer script. It means realizing there is no trophy for driving a brand new $70,000 truck while secretly sweating over a utility bill. Stop measuring your success by what you can finance on an 84-month loan, and start measuring it by how much invisible, unencumbered freedom you own. Choose physics over status. Build your 20,000 escape foundation first. Protect your cash flow fiercely. And give yourself the ultimate luxury: the absolute power to choose how you spend your time on this earth. Secure the foundation, master the math, and let momentum do the rest. Your future self will thank you for it. Every rocket launched into space burns over 80% of its total fuel reserves in the first 2 minutes of flight just to break free from Earth's gravitational pull. Once it clears the atmosphere, moving through deep space requires almost zero energy. Your financial life operates under the exact same law of physics. Most people spend 40 years burning all their fuel in the lower atmosphere, constantly fighting the gravity of bills, debt, and lifestyle expectations. That number isn't $1 million. It's exactly $20,000.